National Hockey League on Sportsnet.
What a day it's been in sports. The Blue Jays inching closer to an AL East title, Canada's women winning silver at the Rugby World Cup, Ryder Cup, and now it's the Canadiens and Leafs on a Saturday night in Toronto. Just feels right, doesn't it?
From Scotiabank Arena, stage set. It's an historic rivalry, Canadiens and Maple Leafs.
I absolutely love it.
We've been waiting for this. Building's pumping here tonight, and it's game on. One, Scott, one, what a goal. Plenty of physicality, as you knew there would be. The iconic Canadian hockey rivalry renewed.
Three games down, three more to go. The NHL preseason is brought to you by Bet99. Download the Bet99 app, and 11 days from now, the Leafs and Canadiens will open their regular season against each other, but still many decisions to be made in the lineup before then. We'll see if we get any clarity tonight. Carolyn Cameron, Justin Bourne, Nick Kyprios, and the birthday boy, Elliot Friedman. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to taking advantage of those senior discounts.
You're there.
Yes, I'm there.
Happy birthday, bud.
I wasn't going to bring it up. So tonight for the Leafs, three key Leafs are making their preseason debuts, and it begins in net with Anthony Stolarz.
Yeah, Stolarz, a bit of a unique feel for him for the first time since being drafted in 2012. He comes into training camp a bona fide #1 goalie. In saying that, he's looking for a contract that reflects that. Doesn't appear that the Leafs are quite ready to give him one just as of yet, which means I think it's imperative he gets off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely. He's been, fantastic for them and deserves one. On my end, I'm looking at Watt tonight. This third line here is really interesting. It's the first time they've had someone, or an entire line where you have Dakota Joshua, Nick Waugh, and Matias Michelli, where it's something totally different, something they haven't had, and really an element that I think can make a big difference for this Leafs team. So what do you expect from Waugh tonight? Not too much. Let's keep expectations reasonable. But you want to see him be effective, be hard on the forecheck, and just offer the Leafs a little bit of something new, Elliot.
I just laugh with hearing you say that. Let's keep expectations reasonable. That's the guy who was kind of acquired in a big deal, and we're in Toronto. There will be no reasonable expectations, but I like the player a lot. I think he's going to be a great fit here. For me, it's Max Domi. He is my only disappointment tonight is that Matthews isn't playing. We know that he's going to be given a shot to play with Matthews this year and start the year, so I was kind of curious to see them together. But I like the way Max Domi finished the season. He's one of the Leafs that had a much better postseason than he did regular. He's been hurt a bit. I'm looking forward to seeing him come back tonight and put on a charge in the last one.
I'm with you. I'm surprised Matthews does not want to play at home on a Saturday night with a good portion of the lineup in there, which means there's only 2 games left later on in the week, Thursday and Saturday. We don't think he's going to play Thursday in Detroit. Will 2 games be enough for Austin Matthews to get her going by opening Wednesday?
It better be, because every year going forward after this, that's all you're getting. So
Right.
This is the new normal for a lot of guys.
Like most road teams in the preseason, the Montreal Canadiens not dressing and didn't travel many of their main stars and mainstays in the lineup, except, of course, for Lane Hudson. Quickly, what's his sophomore season going to look like?
He just has such a high ceiling. I think it's what can the growth be? Can you grow on the defensive side of things and become a MVP caliber player eventually?
Escapability is off the charts. This guy, will watch him tonight. How many times he puts himself in danger only to escape miraculously.
He's a great player. Going to have a great year.
Okay, it's Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson in the booth, and ringside at Scotiabank, we find Sean McKenzie.
Well, Carolyn, tonight for the first time in the preseason, as you guys mentioned, we'll get to see Anthony Stolarz in action, as well as Max Domi, who's recovered from his injury. Tonight, Domi will play center, though, as the Leafs are going with a bit of a mixed bag lineup. There is one line to really key in on, though. You can call it the NKOTB line. The new kids on the block, 3 newcomers who very well could make up the Maple Leafs' third line in the regular season. Michelli, Waugh, Joshua. Keep an eye on them tonight. See how they match. These could see three guys that helped change the identity of the Maple Leafs forward group. Now for the Montreal Canadiens, let's play a game that I like to call Who Said That? Earlier this week, a Habs player said, I think you're always fighting for spots. There are no guarantees ever for jobs. Everyone wants to play for the big club and show what they can do. The fight never stops. Now that sounds like a young prospect fighting for a roster spot. Was it? Not necessarily. That would be 66-point defenseman and Calder winner Lane Hutson. He is humble off the ice, on the ice. He is electric. He's in the lineup and he always puts on a show. Puck drop coming up in a few moments, but now the anthems. Enjoy.
We now ask that you please rise if you're able to, remove your hats, and join Natalie Morris in the singing of our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. Quand ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
11 days until they meet in the season opener. It's a Saturday night preseason preview tonight as the Canadiens face off against the Maple Leafs in Toronto. They're the starting goaltenders, at least. We'll see them to start tonight. Not sure if they'll go the distance. 29-year-old Kaapo Kähkönen for Montreal, hoping an outstanding AHL playoff last spring can springboard him back into the NHL. And at the other end, Anthony Stolarz sees his first preseason action, has led the league in save percentage at .926 the past two seasons. Well, the Canadiens sending basically a Laval Rocket lineup, but there's the Calder Trophy winner, Lane Hutson, the marquee attraction for Montreal. And a big night for Nicholas Roy. The former Golden Knight makes his Leaf debut, a French-Canadian who as a kid cheered for the Leafs in this iconic rivalry, and excited about playing Montreal here on a Saturday night. The starting lineup's brought to you by Bet99. Download the Bet99 app. Both teams 2-1, and the Leafs coming off a 7-2 victory over the Canadiens in Montreal. So Waugh with Dakota Joshua and Matthias Michelli. Craig, as Elliot Friedman was saying, a preview perhaps of the Leafs' third line, and likely the third line perhaps for the Montreal Canadiens. Kapanen's in, and a chance. Stolarz shut that away from the on-rushing Zach Bolduc.
Oh, there's an early test there for Anthony Stolarz. You're right. There's a lot of mixed up lines and trying to get some continuity. And Chris, the exciting thing here is you're kind of on the back nine now of training camp. You know, we've gotten through the first 3 games. Here's the last 3 to go. And I think every player gets a little excited getting that much closer to the start of NHL hockey.
Sammy Blais, who played in St. Louis for Craig Berube, is on the ice. Owen Beck is leveled by Brandon Carlo. On the forecheck, the former Red Wing and Chicago Blackhawk Joe Veleno, but it's fed ahead. And here's Tavares inside the line and took the pass and put the play offside.
Well, Chris, you highlighted early on the Calder winner last year, Lane Hutson. What does he do? Jumps up, makes a play around the boards, and then quickly up ice. Trying to get a little transition here right through the middle of the ice. And, you know, not a hard shot for Stolarz, but one quickly that he's able to get there. Good drive to the front of the net. And Bolduc is going to be an interesting sight here for the Montreal Canadiens, coming over from the St. Louis Blues. A lot of potential again. I mean, that seems to be the key buzzword in training camp all along, and Bolduc's got an opportunity here in Montreal. to get himself a good situation.
Alexander Carrier sent it ahead. It'll be dumped in by Tyler Thorpe. Back to get it. Matt Benning, who looked good in Montreal and scored a goal, and might be pushing for the 7th D job in Toronto. Matthew Nyes out there now with Max Domi, and Nick Robertson steps up on this line for the Maple Leafs. Alex Belzile starts the play. Farrell dumps it to the Toronto line, and Domi is back playing in his first game of the preseason. Jake McCabe back, awaiting the completion of a change, and everybody's into the lineup, into the game now, including Michael Pezzetta, the former Canadian, sending it in. Out there with Borja Ballas, the first look at Ballas wearing 39 for the Maple Leafs. Signed in the offseason after a terrific overage junior year with the Prince George Cougars.
Again, trying to get depth in the American Hockey League. An opportunity here to get into a preseason game, show you can handle yourself in NHL-type situations.
Flipped in by Lucas Cadata, who's the captain in Laval. It'll come back to the line for Engstrom. Injuries have been mounting early on that blue line for Montreal. Here's Engstrom walking the line, tracked by Pezzetta, and that hits somebody in front and ends up on the netting.
Well, good pace here early on, as you would expect. You know, this preseason has been littered with, on paper, teams that look like the more experienced teams, but all of a sudden the less experienced team ended up having the success. And, you know, that happens often. Craig Berube talked about it. A lot of the veteran guys not necessarily playing at the same intensity level. Guys who haven't made the NHL trying everything in their power to make an impact. And often on paper, it doesn't really translate during these exhibition games.
Up against Oliver Kapanen on that faceoff, and along the boards, it'll come back to Hudson. 60 assists last year. Across, and Stolars with the stop as Jaden Struble tests the Leaf goaltender.
Well, and his partner right now in Lane Hudson, I think it was Nick was talking about, just always a jitterbug around the top. He's so active with his feet and never stops moving, always trying to get laterally, and coming off that amazing Calder Trophy winning season. It'll be really interesting to chart him this year and his second go-around along the league. You're not going to surprise any opponent this year like he did early on last year.
Paul wins that draw. Carlo moves it ahead. Matias Michelli has 4 assists in the preseason. All 4 have come in the opening period. He had a pair in the first period in Montreal. That slides past Riley, and icing called against the Canadiens.
Well, let's go back to young Lane Hudson and what a year it was as a rookie defenseman. Everyone tell you maybe goaltender the only other position that's harder than playing defense. Look at his assists. 2 Hall of Famers in Larry Murphy and Chris Chelios. He ended up setting the Montreal Canadian record of 66 points, which beat Chris Chelios as well. So season number 1, just an incredible one, and you can just see the potential every time he touches the puck. He's pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, the question, what's the next step for a guy like Lane Hudson? And I got a question, how did they leave him off the long Olympic list for Team USA?
I think his dad had a question about that too. He wasn't too happy, but you know, lots of players and lots of time obviously for Hudson, and early on here, you know, he'll be trying to make his mark, like so many players trying to get that opportunity to play in Olympic hockey.
Sammy Blais around, it'll be dropped back into the corner. Owen Beck will flip it behind the net. Stolars out to play it. An outlet for Benning to Tavares. Kelly Yarncroke on the line with Tavares and Nylander. Back in comes Beck. He tries to drop it off. That's disrupted, intended for Valeno, but Tavares there defensively. Carrier pocket picked by Nyes. Here's Matthew Nyes to the attack. He gets past Valeno. Tries to center it, knocked down in front as Nick Robertson tried to redirect. Here's Carrier. 12th in the league in block shots last season. And on the other side, Chris Tanev in the lineup was number 6 in the league in that department. Oliver Jacki to Carrier. That gets by Belzile, and icing called against the Canadiens.
You know, a little bit of a different lineup here, and obviously Matthew Nyes without Austin Matthews, no Mitch Marner. We talked a lot about that, but this is an interesting kind of shift that you see out of Matthew Nyes. Just the confidence growing with the puck, that ability to buy a little bit of time. And you know, with that absence on the wing, you know, most likely he's going to continue to play with Austin Matthews. But you always wonder, is he going to have to carry the puck a little bit more than maybe he did last year? And I just think that throughout the course of last season, the confidence he had with the puck grew with each and every game. And I think this year will be fun to watch to see the progress he's been able to make in that effort.
Went from 15 goals to 29 and almost 5 minutes more of ice time during the regular season, and added another minute 17 to that total in the playoffs.
Well, that's the growth as a player, right? There's one thing about, okay, getting the coach to believe in you that you get a little bit more ice time. But Chris, with that ice time playing on a top line, you're playing against top defense, top checking every single shift. And I think what you learn there is just how difficult it is to buy yourself some time to get to those open areas. And I think that's where the growth of his game continued as the season went along. Having that extra ice time, but most importantly against the top players. And I thought he handled it extremely well. It'll be more of the same to start this season.
There's Farrell centering it. Thorpe unable to get a shot away, and it gets past Del Gaiso, who heads back inside the line. Belzil heads off. Del Gaiso back in his own zone along with Engstrom. 5.5 minutes in. And the Leafs have yet to register a shot on goal. Wall lost the puck, and it's in behind the Leaf net. Edwin Larson wins a board battle there and tries to work it ahead against Riley Kidney. A lead feed for Dakota Joshua. He is too far and icing called.
Okay, and again, exhibition hockey, you get the eye in the sky. You watch certain players, and we talked about Nick Waugh coming in with a lot of expectations to fill a certain role. You know, a really competent player, a Stanley Cup winner. He's been through the different battles checking the top players, and you know, I think it's going to be fun to watch to see him get settled into this role. And Chris, we saw the last game against Montreal, it was the Lawton line looking like, okay, maybe you got a fourth line there. Here's an audition here that maybe the third line could be this trio here. And it'll be fun to watch to see if they can get a little bit of chemistry. The chemistry was great with Lorentz and Lawton and Cowan the last game.
I was going to joke, Leafs do not have their top line in the lineup. Scoreless early here in Toronto.
Earlier in the week to suit up with his brother Florian, both scoring with their mom Simona in the crowd. That will be a hard moment to top. This was a pretty special one, though, from earlier before the game. Hanging the jerseys, Arbor realizing there is an A on that, and what a reaction it was from tonight's assistant captain. He loved that, taking on a leadership role here tonight with Arbor Jack guy, guys.
Looking to take his game to another level this year.
You know, don't underestimate what that means to a player, too. He knows he's not going to be an assistant captain during the year, but it's just those little things that keep building players up and giving them a little bit more responsibility and pride in what they do. And every player wants to have a letter on, and you know, it doesn't matter if it's just an exhibition game. That's something that really means something, and coaches don't take that for granted either.
The puck turned over. Tavares in front of the net, and Hakkinen gets his first touch of the puck. It'll come back to Jake McCabe, firing it wide. Tanev steps up, blocked by Newhook. Here's Nylander trying to get loose, knocked off his stick. Kapanen nearly got away, but McCabe breaks that up. But now a chance for Hudson working in. Blaine Hudson, and Tanev got back to check him as he was thinking about a wraparound or a centering pass there. Nylander lost the puck, and McCabe will get rid of it out to center.
Boy, don't you think there's going to be a green light for Hudson each and every time he's out there? Once again, he's been the guy being able to create the offense by jumping up and getting into those holes and attacking the net.
Carrier drops it in. Montreal in the forecheck. Riley Kidney in the midst of that. Tied up along the board, dug loose by Nyes. Now Nick Robertson to work. Domi unable to get past Carrier and back down the right side. Will be Laurent Dauphin. Second leading scorer in Laval last year, the former Arizona Coyote and a teammate of Shane Doan now in the front office of the Maple Leafs. Puck comes to Stolarz, and he'll reel it in.
Well, one real good sign for the Maple Leafs. You know, all the talk about would John Tavares end up signing here? Well, yes, he has, and doing exactly what he's done well all throughout his career. The little plays down low, the patience in front of the net makes an excellent play there. There's Hudson jumping in front, trying to drive to the net, but Tavares just keeps him to the outside. You're not going to necessarily win that speed battle, but another good veteran play by Tavares to just keep him to the outside, use a good active stick, and Hudson not able to get that inside route to cut across the front of the net. I think Hudson's not afraid to do that. Tavares just didn't allow him the chance.
Tavares sitting on a few more milestones in his distinguished career at 494 goals, and he's 7 points away from 500 as a Maple Leaf. Here's Dakota Joshua, knocked off his stick. Michelli back. And now Ekman Larsson, who had been paired with young Ben Danford, who's looked good in training camp for the Maple Leafs, and perhaps benefiting from the veteran experience alongside with Ekman Larsson playing on the left side in training camp. There's Michelli trying to shake the checking of Jack-High. Matthias Michelli, an outlet, and that's broken up and bumped ahead by Veleno. The Kirkland, Quebec native Joe Veleno drops it in for Owen Beck. Veleno following up. Bumped out of there, and now Joshua and Waugh are away. Leafs have Joshua Waugh in the lineup, but Montreal does not have Joshua Waugh in their lineup tonight.
There's another player from Montreal. Can he make an impact this year? Can he try to stick and stay up with the big club?
There's Tanev for McCabe. Pezzetta, dangerous pass, but out of the reach of Belzile. Tanev ahead, over the line. It's Quillen to Vallis, and that one slides in on Kakkonen. Kept in at the line by Tanev, who bounces it on goal, and Kakkonen will cover up.
Well, there's another good opportunity for Quillen. Does a nice job of just buying himself a little time on the entry. And, you know, Vallis getting his first taste of playing in the National Hockey League, driving, couldn't quite get control, but the opportunity is there. These are the types of games that you take your chance, try to make your plays, get back to your basics, what you've always been. I think as a head coach for Craig Berube, when you got guys that don't have all that much experience, just say, do what got you here. Think the way you did all the way through your career to get here. It's sometimes easier said than done, but exhibition game is the opportunity to try to convey that and allow yourself to get a little confidence and play maybe a little bit more in a game that you get the chance to feel what it's like to play against NHL players.
Well, it's a first for him, but he's used to playing with high-end talent. He was a teammate of Connor Bedard with the Regina Pats. Riley with a shot, blocked en route. And Montreal is out. It'll be flicked down into the Leaf zone. First man to it, Bolduc, who really came into his own in the late stages of last year with St. Louis. Struble across to Hudson. Here's Hudson, tracked by Tavares, gets the shot through. Covered up by Stolarz.
Well, what's that? It's halfway through the first period, and 3 of the good chances from the Montreal Canadiens came off the stick of guess who? You know, the one real headliner on the back end here for Montreal. An easy looking play, but it's again the movement that he makes. So side to side, he shows great edges along the top of the blue line, has good control with his stick, and that's one that you get it to the front of the net, look for either a deflection or a rebound. Good job by Stolarz holding on to that and not allowing one.
I think he's going to make the team, huh?
Well, Sean said, you always have to put your work in preseason. Don't take anything for granted. And I think that's the kind of attitude that'll serve him well as he continues to grow.
Ekman Larsson out, trying to feed it ahead to Robertson, who scored in the first preseason game against Ottawa. Nothing new in the preseason for 89. Domi takes his man down. Struble goes after Domi, who's going to get 1 penalty, but it looks like they're going to get more.
Now, Domi did a good job. His first game is after dealing with an injury here. He tried to be aggressive early on, got a good hit in on Lane Hudson initially. It's coming back, though. A little bit of extracurricular is going to draw the penalty, and Montreal looks like it's going to come back with a power play.
So Domi gets the initial one. It looks like Struble will also get the gate on the hit on Hudson. That's going to get a reaction. Garrett Ray calling the penalties as we step aside.
Veteran Mike Matheson, Noah Dobson. It's Lane Hudson here who has really shown early on that he's the guy who's going to stir the drink here for Montreal. You know, continually jumping around the puck, keeping his legs moving, very active, driving the net when he has to. And, you know, the one talent that I said he had is just that mobility up top, and that's going to be the real challenge. You know, he took a lot of hits last year, realized that you're going to be circled on the board, and Chris, that's the difference between year 2 and year 1 here for Hudson. You know, a guy like Cale Makar, when you go into a pregame against your opponent, his name is circled, and you have a plan of how you're going to handle him. For most of last season, Lane Hudson didn't have that from his opponent. Maybe by the end of the year, the second or third time around, you've got that circle, and here's how we're going to handle it. I guarantee you every single pregame meeting for the opponent's going to have an idea of how you're going to handle Hudson. So it'll be a very different challenge for him this year playing the game.
And look at that pass, setting up a chance, and the rebound. Ricochet back on Stolarz, even more dangerous. 4 skaters aside.
Well, you've got that open ice, and that's where he's able to take advantage of it. If you're Marty St. Louis and you're saying, if you had any doubts at all about, you know, you hear so often the sophomore jinx, guys who had good first seasons, maybe they'll rest on their laurels a bit. You know, we're not even 11 minutes into this game, and the most impactful player has been number 48 for the Montreal Canadiens.
So Domi for interference, Struble for roughing with penalty calls, and 140 of 4 skaters aside. Here's Engstrom, tracked by Riley. Hudson watched by Waugh, got away, in deep, and a sharp angle shot will stick to Struble. Or to Stolarz, excuse me.
Yeah, sorry, there's a great example of Stolarz. So if you're looking again, okay, first game of the season for Anthony Stolarz. What did he do so well last year when he was playing at his best? He's an aggressive goaltender that can also show calm. And there's a great example of Hudson's going side to side, trying to get him to overplay, trying to get him to move, and he just calmly uses his big body, stays square to the shot in net, and again, not leaving a rebound. It's been a good start so far here for number 41.
The Leafs list him at 6'6", and this season, 248, so he's filling the net. That one knocked away from Waugh back into the Leaf zone. McCable sent it ahead.
No way I'm stepping on a scale here after this summer. We don't have to put our weights on, do we? Yeah, I'll get 6'2", but that's about as far as I'm going.
I think Stolarz is safe. Here's Bolduc moving in. Stolarz to stop. A rebound left in front. And a chance here. Newhook scores. Alex Newhook breaks the ice.
Just an opportunity to clear the zone and unable to get control of that rebound afterwards. And it's Newhook just jumping on, able to find the open ice. It looked like a good position here. All 4 guys back. There's the rebound. Stolarz can't get it underneath, able to make that first part of the save, but it trickled underneath. This good heads-up play, and Newhook in tight. Coming off back-to-back 15-goal years, you think of all the question marks coming into this season about the health of Kirby Dach. Is he going to stay healthy and be the number 2 guy? Newhook's got an opportunity here to play a more significant role, both offensively and defensively. And there he had some good finish to get that one under the arm of Anthony Stolarz.
So it does come 4-on-4. Lead feed for Robertson too far. Jack-Eye back in his own zone, tracked by Robertson. Carrier will draw an assist on the goal, gets it ahead, and away goes Oliver Kapanen. Kapanen with the shot off the pipe. Brings that one up. Carrier and Bolduc get assists on the goal by Newhook. Play across. Jack-Eye put it in front. The rebound ricochets out to Robertson into the shift and out of gas as he plays it into the Montreal zone. Under 8 to go here in the opening period. The teams return to full strength. Edstrom leads them in. A return pass. And that was broken up by Benning. to the line, but not out. Kept in by Engstrom. Chipped ahead now, and it's Tavares. Domi out of the box. He'll send it to the line, knocked down by Hudson. Back in comes Belzile. With Sean Farrell. Played to an open wing. And getting there first, William Nylander. Matt Benning absorbs a hit. Ekman Larson played it back into the corner. Nylander unable to get control. Ekman Larson handed it off to Benning, and now off Quillen out to center. Right back in come the Canadiens. Big Tyler Thorpe out of Richmond, BC. 6'5", 210. Canadiens will turn it back in. Here's Dauphin. Checked on the play by Ballas. Centering pass, and knocked down was Dauphin, and the Leafs will break out. Pass there for Pezzetta. Doesn't get there. It's Dauphin back in, and he slid that wide. Stolarz gets run into, and that will get a reaction from the Leafs, especially after the playoffs last year. And Sam Bennett in Game 1 against Florida.
Yeah, that's about the last thing you want to see for Anthony Stolarz. To his credit, he popped up right away. The fan, a veteran guy, just trying to drive to the net and make a play. But this is one that's going to end up with him in the box. Looks like the Leafs are going to go to the power play unless any of the retaliation goes. But Chris, early on here, Montreal's had a little bit better step, a couple of turnovers, and just took an angle that never really deviated from the crease. Stolarz had to stand his ground, but watch Dauphin. He doesn't really even stop, and he gets the right glove right into the mask. Stolarz able to keep control.
Montreal penalty number 36. 2 minutes,
help he gets.
Interference.
And there's the call as a power play here against the Canadiens, Dauphin. But thankfully, Anthony Stolarz up and okay.
It was Game 1 of the Florida series after the opening round win over Ottawa, and it lasted 30 minutes and 12 seconds for Anthony Stolarz, and he did not return.
No, and you can't help but think what an impact Stolarz had. You know, you get that first round against Ottawa, you're able to get through the hurdle that's been such a problem, and then, boy, right off the bat, he's out. Now you have Joseph Woll again away, and the signing of James Reimer on a tryout, obviously just trying to control the depth. But you really look in the net and make sure that he finds himself and stays healthy as the year goes along.
So the Leafs working on their special teams this week, and we'll see how that translates on the ice. They were 1 for 3 against Montreal and 4 for 12 so far in the preseason as Tavares whips it wide, and that will bank around to the line, kept alive by Morgan Riley, who'll quarterback the A power play unit this year. Robertson taking the place of Morgan Riley or Austin Matthews. Otherwise, this is their starting power play unit. Now Ekman Larson comes on. Tavares looks across, hits Nyes with Nylander. Nylander, the Rocket Richard Trophy runner-up last year with 45, but the Canadiens turn them back.
A little different wrinkle defensively for the Canadiens, just 3 across the line. The second forward is just allowing that gap, as you see here as Oliver Ekman-Larsson jumps in. That time they backed off. The last time they stayed aggressive, able to turn the puck over.
Nick Waugh on the ice along with Max Domi. It'll come back to Matias Maccelli. Canadiens auditioning some new penalty killers. Here's Domi in front. It'll come to Maccelli, and that's shrugged away by Kakkonen. Maccelli able to hold the zone. Nice work there. We'll go to Dakota Joshua. Oliver Ekman-Larsson. That's broken up there by Engstrom.
Now Larsson is trying to thread that through to a tap into Waugh, and a good stick there defensively. Didn't allow that good pass to get through.
Here's Domi. 15 seconds left in the power play. Down low it goes. Looking for Joshua in front. Waugh's pass denied. Holds on. Maccelli back across. Stolarz lets his power play know they're running out of time. Here's Domi in front, and it's batted out of mid-air by Struble out as Dauphin returns to the ice. Lead pass for Maccelli off his stick and back into the Canadian zone. Hudson starts the breakout. Flipped in by Delgado. Intercepted by Belzile, but taken back by Jacob Pullen. Here's Jake McCabe redlining in. Kakkonen stops that up. Around the boards, Pullen crashing in there, trying to hold it in, but Montreal gets control. Thorpe sends it across. Here's Farrell. Checked by Tanev. Jake McCabe, and now Calle Järnkrok. Flips it ahead, and Tanev's got a little room. He'll dump it in and head to the bench on a change. Farrell flicks it in on the backhand. Stolar's out to play it around. He talked this morning about that was part of the game he really wanted to get back to, playing the puck and getting comfortable playing the puck.
Well, it makes such a difference for your defense too. If you can anticipate the dump in, able to get a piece of it and have good communication with your defense.
Riley got caught. Owen Beck got a 2-on-1, and it's broken up by Brandon Carlo. Now Tavares ahead. Nyes is on the move. He'll chip and chase up against Carrier. Tavares looked to center it. That broken up, intercepted by Valeno. And Carrier will send it back into the Leaf zone.
There's an example there of a dump in trying to get a change, and Stolar's able to get to it, get control. Now you come out as a unit instead of chasing the puck down, giving Montreal a chance to get to it.
Ekman Larson off Joshua. Sent around to the far side. Dauphin, Struble, back to Dauphin, who plays it past Domi. Joshua stepped into his man at center. Dumped into the Leaf zone, and Condano goes after it. McCabe, reverse hit there on Riley Kidney. Domi ahead, and Ekman Larson turns it back, buying some time for a Leaf change. Back out comes Waugh. Michael Pezzetta with him on this shift. As Nicholas Waugh dumps it in. Scored an overtime goal for the Vegas Golden Knights against Montreal in that semifinal back during the COVID year, 2021. Well, Duke works the boards. Kapanen trying to fish it out of there, but it comes to Waugh. Off the boards to hit the center, and Pezzetta able to bank that back into Montreal territory. Engstrom shifting gears, following up. It'll be Kapanen. Just over a minute to go. That walk in front. They try to send away Nylander. And following up, it'll be Järnkrok dropping it in, but sending it out of play with 66 seconds remaining here in the opening period. Alex Newhook with the opening goal tonight.
He is Michelli, and one thing that has been talked about has been his passing. Here's an opportunity. This one slides through, gets the quick release away on that power play, unable to get to it. Back at the other end, you could see Beck, he had a free lane there and instead kind of deferred. And, you know, there's one thing, just the confidence level to take that puck, go hard to the net, and instead tried to pass off. Good defensive play by Brandon Carlo with a good active stick to knock it away.
Carlo been on a couple of sides of great Montreal rivalries. Now with the Leafs after a lot of years in the Boston Bruin Montreal Canadian Wars. High stick and play stopped as Mike Ross tells the fans in the building we're in the final minute, first period.
And you think of another full year now. Both he and Lawton went, what, 20 games last year at the end of the season. And even as a veteran guy, it's such a different feeling going to a new team. You don't want to overstep your bounds, and you don't want to jump in and take control. Now you've got the playoffs you've went through last year. You've got another training camp, and I think you've already seen the payoff in Scott Lawton, just the confidence that he seems to have. But I think it'll really help Brandon Carlo too. A really nice guy, not a shy guy, but a really nice guy. And I think at times, you know, you come in and maybe you don't play with the same edge that you had because you're trying not to overstep your bounds with a new set of teammates. I think he'll be a much better fit even this year than he was already fitting in well at the end of last year.
Still looking for, and they're not necessarily looking for offense from Brandon Carlo, but still looking for his first goal as a Maple Leaf.
He'd be a pair with Riley and allow Morgan Riley to maybe be a better offensive player than he was for the most of last year. You know, free up Riley a little bit to go, have that confidence in your partner that he's there to help you defensively.
There's Bill Zill, good back pressure to take it away by Tavares. Carlo looks up ice. That's deflected down. Nylander streaks after it. Half-minute remaining here in the opening period. Nylander on the forecheck along with Tavares. Thorpe able to get control, and he takes over at center ice, and now he'll try and charge in. Tanev after it. He'll send him around for Yarncroke. Pass ahead inside the line with the final 10 seconds. And Hudson in behind the net is going to let the clock drain. So 1 goal at 10:22 by Alex Newhook. Carrier and Bolduc the assists on the opening goal of the game. Shots 8-5 after 20 minutes in favor of Montreal. Carolyn Cameron, Nick Kyprios, Justin Bourne, Elliot Friedman coming up in our first intermission on a Saturday night matchup between the forever rivals.
Open the scoring. A big year for Newhook coming up. He looks to take a step, and to do so, he spent a little bit of time in the offseason working with a pretty big legend. That would be Patrice Bergeron. I caught up with Newhook in the intermission and asked him what that experience was like.
You know, obviously a guy that's done a lot in his career, and faceoffs were a big part of his game. One of the best probably to ever do it. So I was lucky enough for him to come out and help me out. So tried to take as much as I can from him, and try to implement it this year. Faceoffs, big part.
Working in the dot's a hard thing for a young player. Newhook had a career 41% face-off percentage. The Habs are hoping that this year can get that number up a little higher, maybe a little closer to Patrice Bergeron's career win percentage of 57.9. I don't know if he'll get there, but anything helps, guys.
Yeah, that would be lofty.
Don't you love the game, though, and NHLers? Like, there's Patrice Bergeron, you know, one of the best Boston Bruins, helping out a San Jose Shark and a Montreal Canadian player. I mean, says a lot about the way the game is now, though. The retired players who are helping out and being such an impact on the newcomers to the game, and I love it. I mean, who would you rather learn from than one of the best in the league? Just the ability to pick his brain and to say, well, what am I doing wrong here? What can I think of there? And you know, even you look around the league, all the ex-players who are behind benches who have that kind of impact. But I think that secondary impact is really important, and that's so many stories around the league during the summer of ex-players helping current players out in that manner.
2-2 for Newhook in the opening period in the face-off circle. 1-0 after 1 period of play for Montreal. The final score twice last year when these two teams met. Opening night last year, of course, Samuel Montembeault was brilliant in a 1-0 shutout. In the last meeting was a 1-0 lead victory here in Toronto. The other 2 games, Leaf wins of 4-1 and 7-3. They'll meet 4 times this season once again. McCabe over the line. Got it across, looking for Waugh. In behind the net, Yarncroke comes up with it. He'll feed the point, back to the line. Carlo, and he sent that wide. Shipped ahead, and that's just a stride or two too far for Newhook. Morgan Riley with the Canadiens changing. Sends it ahead. Here's Carlo to the red line. Fires it down into Montreal territory. Yarncroke tried to kick that towards Tavares. It'll ricochet to Nylander. Out in front. And Tavares off his stick and into the corner. Tavares after it again. Checked on the play, and Owen Beck starts out. Here's Beck across, looking for Blais. Carlo there, and he'll play it for Riley. Got away from him. Beck at the line. That's dumped back in. A big rebound there, but play called on the offside at the line.
Well, Chris, talk about old players and certain guys that you don't expect to see in the same situation. Let's do a little flashback here with Dakota Joshua playing for the Vancouver Canucks. Big hit on David Camp. Who comes after him? Well, Mark Giordano. You never know who you're going to fight and when you're going to meet him next. And if you've watched the Leafs camp, Giordano behind the bench with the Maple Leafs rookies having an opportunity to help guys. Now Dakota Joshua with that very same Maple Leaf on his chest. That's kind of personificates what the NHL is all about. You never know where you're going to end up, and you never know who you're going to be working with.
Here's Nyes trying to get past Carrier, who was able to recover in the nick of time. Carrier goes down, so does Robertson. And the puck sent ahead, and now Farrell charging after it. Stolarz will come out to play it away, and nearly got caught as that puck was fired wide. Kept in by Jacky. Here's Farrell behind the net. Looking for Thorpe, picked up by Nyes. And now Max Domi with an outlet, and Ekman Larson, who led all ice time in the opening period with over 8 minutes of work. Tied up in front, Belzile didn't allow Nyes to get a stick on the puck. Robertson can't get by his man, Tanev, and that's offside too.
Well, not a whole lot of open ice, trying to get to the net, trying to create chances at both sides. It looked like an opportunity here. Chip the puck by, but Carrier does an excellent job. Look at how he uses his body, gets a little hand in on the stick there, got away with it, and then at the other end, good read here by Stolarz, and then the reaction as that one gets deflected. Stolarz just tries to take away any angle and not allow the empty net to be sitting there.
The big Tyler Thorpe on the Montreal bench, 6 hits in his last preseason effort against Philadelphia. Big McCabe had it slide off his stick. Nearly a chance in front for Kidney, and Tanev able to take that away. Kidney on the board check. Bill Fan's got it. He'll cycle it back to Kidney. The Laval rocket line out there. And the trend continuing where the younger, inexperienced lineups are carrying play. Tanev up ahead, that goes off the stick to Joshua. Marty Salouet didn't like the performance of his team in Montreal. They're getting a better effort here so far tonight in Toronto. Brandon Carlo off the boards, trying to spring Joshua just out of his reach. Hudson gets rid of it, and Waugh will pounce on that. Here's Nicholas Waugh behind the net. Trying to turn there on Struble. Gets tied up, lost possession of it, and Struble gets it back from Hudson. Lane Hudson, couple shots on goal in the opening period. Here's Hudson over the line, working his way through, and that's deflecting up onto the screen.
Well, it was a close call, wasn't it, on the offside there, just dragging the foot back, but another example of good pressure here by this Waugh line, and then just Hudson looking up, sees he's got a little bit of open ice. There's the toe drag there. That would have been an interesting call had it gone in, but another good stick defensively, not allowing that shot to get through, but a great example again of the intensity and speed of Lane Hudson to create something basically out of nothing there.
But flipped ahead towards Nylander. Yardtrump nearly got through there. And Carey able to recover and make the defensive play. Here's Blade between the benches and now fired in by Owen Beck. Benning sends it around. Yarncrook tries to redirect it. Unable to string Nylander as the play read by Beck. Taking it is Tavares. Here's Tavares in behind the net. He'll center. Nylander can't knock that down. Kept in at the line by Tavares. Back to 88. William Nylander to Ekman Larson and into the glove of Kakkonen.
You know, training camp is all about, you know, how many spots are open. You think of the Leafs on their back end. There's Matt Benning getting an opportunity to play with Oliver Ekman Larson. Benning scored a goal against the last game against Montreal, but you look, Chris, at the lineup here. It was season opener last year, and this is what will probably be the season opener. The only exit is Timmins there, and Carlo a great replacement, so not a lot of jobs except that 7th or maybe 8th job, and Benning just trying desperately to maybe be that guy. Benoit had such a good year last year, established himself. The Leafs basically looked the same as they did last year on the back end, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think they're pretty solid in that regard with their top 6.
Benoit, for the time being, is out of the lineup with the last week with an upper body injury. They say isn't too serious. Domi played that from behind the goal line, and Kakkonen has to cover.
Well, a lot of the eyes on Max Domi. I like Max's talk in training camp when he was sitting out, obviously a little bit frustrated, coming off not his best offensive year, but he said, hey, 11 years in this league, and you still get those butterflies going into camp. There's still that little uneasiness, but what it also brings is another opportunity, a fresh slate for a year. And you heard Justin having him up on the top line with Austin Matthews, and I think everybody's intrigued to see what will happen as these last couple of games go when we get to the regular season. The opportunity, though, is there for Max to say, okay, this is maybe a year where I can really make strides and take that opportunity and run with it while he can.
Can he get off to a better start? That has hounded him the 2 years in Toronto. No goals in the first 22 last year. None in the first 21 the year before. Did finish strong, though. A good playoff for Domi with 3 goals and 7 points. Kidney trying to center the puck, and Brandon Carlo will take over.
You got to show him some highlights of Team Europe in the Ryder Cup here. Get off to a good start. The start is really important, and as you mentioned, when you go that long without scoring, it really wears on you.
Nice down low. Here's Domi in front, and he couldn't get a shot away. It is passed across. Ekman Larsson plays the ricochet, and Robertson comes close. Now back to Nyes. Leafs with a flurry here. Oliver Ekman Larsson looks for a shooting lane. It'll be Benning. He'll send it wide. Rebound taken there by Robertson. Into the corner. Domi fires it across. Ekman Larsson trying to hook it in front. It'll glance off a skeet. Back to Benning. Firing it. And that off a stick in front. I think it hit Hudson and didn't get to the net. And now Newhook will backhand it to the Leaf line. Oliver Kapanen trying to come up with it there. Newhook blew a tire on the other side of the ice, and he'll head off. Duke and Kapanen battling for it along the boards, and it came loose for Robertson. Here's Robertson flipping it wide of the net from the Leaf side of center. That's icing.
Oh, that's a play at the end of a good pressure shift. Couple of times kept it in. Nice little backhand pass by Nyes. The last second, you see the lift of the stick there. Good defensive play by Hudson coming back, not allowing Domi to get that shot away. Shot on net, never a bad thing. There's an opportunity that trying to get a rebound in front. I like, Oliver Ekman Larsson there on that quote-unquote third pair. You saw his mobility and his reads. I think that really helps too in that matchup of a third line or fourth line against a third set of D. Ekman Larsson can be dangerous offensively and take advantage of it.
Mentioned that they've moved him across to the left side. Benoit was the left D, and he played the right for most of that pairing last year, but maybe can unlock a little bit more offensively from a guy who has 500 career NHL points.
Well, and I think that is where you do find that, a guy with his ability to read the play, and when you don't have to go up all the time against the top team and worry about the defensive matchup, to have that on your third pair, I think is really of value. And Ekman Larsson's healthy again. He had a good season last year, and I think sets himself up to have a really good one again this year.
And should get a little extra power play time without Mitch Marner as the quarterback on the first unit. That's Morgan Riley, and Ekman Larsson moves up in all likelihood as the guy on the second pair. Here comes Robertson over the line with Nyes. Nick Robertson shot blocked. Carrier with the block. Robertson got his own rebound and fired it wide. 5 goals last year in the preseason for Robertson, and trying to continue being Mr. September.
Yeah, that was a tough shift though there with the 2 icings. They were at about 1:40 of ice time there, so there wasn't a whole lot left in the tank there as they were trying to make that play.
Just shy of 8 minutes here in the second period, and Dakota Joshua and Arbor Jacki, who might miss Ryan Reeves, but is looking for a new dance partner in Toronto. They'll step aside. Canadiens continue to lead. The shots are even at 9 apiece.
31-year-old, a huge piece of the puzzle for the Leafs as he continues his progression to becoming a true #1 guy in the league. And he was asked earlier in the week about goalies he looked up to and still does, and he mentioned 3 interesting names: Scott Wedgwood, Ben Bishop, and Tim Thomas. Kind of a random group, but they all have one thing in common. It was in their early and late 30s in Thomas's case where they had their best statistical season. Stolarz is hoping that that's the case for him as he hopes to inch closer and closer to a long-term contract with the Leafs, guys.
33 game starts last year. Can he get to 50?
Well, you think as a 31-year-old, he hasn't had the wear and tear in the first 9 years that some of those other goaltenders have. Right. You know, he's not sitting at like a Marty Brodeur. You've played 70 games a year for your first 9 years. I think that can hinder you in some way to prove that you have the mental capacity to play those kind of games. But from a body perspective, you know, he doesn't have the hard miles. And now that he's got the opportunity, now that he's learned and he's got the maturity to understand the game better, I think it's a wonderful opportunity for him to take control of that #1 job and play those types of games.
The Canadiens on the power play, and a hot shot there from Bolduc. Leafs trying to clear. Hudson unable to hold the zone and just able to knock it away from Järnkrok. So the Canadiens 2 for 11 on the power play in the preseason. Hudson at the wheel. We'll kick it back, and the goal scorer, Newhook, will leave it. Oliver Kapanen in, knocked off his stick. Bolduc trying to save it for Montreal. Waugh looking to dig it out. Waugh and Järnkrok, the first pair up on the kill for Toronto. And next up, I was just going to say, it'll be interesting to see if we see William Nylander killing penalties this year. Did not last year. And with the exit of Mitch Marner, there is a spot open. And up ahead, it's Nyes working. Took a look, looking for Nylander, and backtracking there neatly to break it up was Newhook. Here comes Hudson back over the line. Hudson holds. Gets it back from Belzile. Sends it across. Hudson with 26 power play points last season, his rookie campaign. Nylander after it. Hudson's got it again. Hudson across. Everything working through 48. Lay down low. A centering pass. Farrell missed it, but there's the goal. And Montreal's got a power play marker and a 2-0 lead. Riley Kidney puts it away.
Well, a couple of opportunities to keep the play alive, and then just a rebound in front. Right after this goal goes in, you see a little talk between Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Stolarz. Stolarz makes the first save here as Ekman-Larsson knows it's a 2-on-1, just can't get the stick there. Off the skate of Matthew Nyes and right down to Kidney. And there's the first save off the toe of Stolarz and right on the doorstep. What an opportunity. Kidney gets his first goal there, pouncing on that rebound off of Farrell.
So they're cheering in Enfield, Nova Scotia tonight for Kidney, who had a 100-point season in the Quebec League back in 21-22. Just 4 goals last season with the Laval Rocket. So the Canadiens with a power play goal and a couple in Montreal against Toronto. In fact, in that game, they had just 4 even strength shots on goal. Over the line comes Veleno with the shot, and Stolarz will cover. So a goal for Newhook in the opening period. Kidney enhances the Canadiens' lead.
Oh, you look at this game, the exhibition season, it's all about taking the opportunities. You got the Maritimers scoring here. Alex Newhook with the game's first goal on a rebound. Very similar play here. And here's Riley Kidney getting his opportunity, scoring his goal. And, you know, those kind of smiles are what training camps and exhibition season is all about. And you look at that power play goal, I'm sure number 86 isn't going to be featured on it, but he's got the opportunity in Laval to maybe play a significant role. And for Marty St. Louis, it's that power play. 21st in the league last year. That's something that the Canadiens continually want to work on as they develop this season. Get a little bit better offensively.
A good night for Atlantic Canada so far, and the Canadiens as the Leafs try to answer. Domi out there along with Nyes and Robertson, and Montreal takes over behind the net. Had a great trip to Prince Edward Island, and everywhere you went, people wanted to talk hockey. Here's Newark again, and Stolarz to stop. And it was a pretty even split between Montreal and Toronto.
Always love the games in Montreal when on a Saturday night you have a lot of Maritimers at the hotel coming up and down, and they flock to Montreal to get to see the Leafs and the Canadiens play.
Carrier, Jack Guy, and off the blocker of Stolarz. Did meet a few Bruin fans, and there were Oiler fans as well. But the Montreal and Toronto fans were sharing barbs even back last month. Put down into the corner. Riley trying to come up with that. Robertson along the boards. Lost the puck as he tried to come away with it. Morgan Riley up ahead and bunted out by Domi.
This line hasn't really been able to get together, have they? You know, guys were talking about Robertson and maybe the missed assignment on the new hook goal, but there's another shift where they get hemmed in their own zone.
Now Dauphin's got it. Back to the line, Struble. Sends it around, and to go to Joshua after that. Bouncing puck and off Waff. Kidney for Struble. That shot deflected down in the crease, and Stolarz down, and he'll sit on it to get a whistle.
Well, Marty St. Louis has to be happy with just the style of this team. Again, it's another example of a team on paper that probably shouldn't be in this game, and we've seen it all throughout the play this preseason. But look at the positioning. And one thing that's been evident is Stolarz has had to make a number of saves with bodies in front. There's Condata in the position right on the blue paint, maybe getting a little bit inside and getting a push, but that's what you want to make it, a difficult save for the goaltender. Stolarz did a good job of keeping his positioning and then getting to that loose puck before a Canadian player could.
Lead feed, and here is Michelli at center. Over the line, Matthias Michelli. Talked about his playmaking. 38 and 40 assist seasons early in his career. Fourth in rookie balloting in his first season in the NHL, and a first-team all-rookie forward that year. And we've got a penalty upcoming against Montreal.
Yeah, looks like it's going to be a roughing call. So if they're just trying to get in and be physical, there's another young guy just trying to, you know, make his impact felt. Maybe got a little bit overzealous, and here's an opportunity. A nothing play, trying to finish. Oh, it's the hand up into the face. You got a youngster against a veteran in Oliver Ekman-Larsson, and often you'll get that call, especially in the preseason. This is, I know it's just a power play in the preseason, but for Craig Berube here, his team hasn't really been able to get some traction. Well, here's an opportunity where you got 5 veteran guys, a chance to get yourself settled into this hockey game on the power play.
William Nylander looking for Tavares. Nylander, Tavares, Nyes, Robertson, and Riley on the penalty kill. It'll be Valeno and Owen Beck. And Morgan Riley reignite his offense by quarterbacking a Leaf power play this season. Here's Robertson taken down by Jack. He comes out in front. Tavares scores. Power play goal. The Leafs are on the board.
And Chris, right on cue, they do exactly that. You know, Tavares the right place at the right time. Just shows great patience on this goal. I thought this should have been a penalty here. Watch Arbor Jacki take down Robertson. It looked like they were going to clear the zone. Skate on skate instead. Good pressure by William Nylander. And that's where John Tavares scores his goal. No arm went up there, so no penalty coming. Jacki can't get the clear, and then just patience by Tavares. Waits for the goaltender to go down and then puts it underneath the glove and off the post and in. 17th year in the National Hockey League. I know a lot of Leaf fans happy that Tavares signed at a number that maybe made a little more sense than the 11-year one he had, or 7-year one he had, and now all of a sudden that's what you're going to see and expect from John Tavares. That kind of hands in tight, and again, another power play presence.
38 last year, 7th time he's had at least 30 goals in his NHL career. And again, approaching 500. Trying to become the 49th player to reach 500 goals in NHL history. Kapanen drops it off. Here's Newhook working his way in. Checked by Tanev. And Quillen starts back. Here's Quillen. That Dallas loose, but couldn't get him the puck. And it's rolled back, icing against Montreal.
Well, you saw a great hit by Tanev there. It's kind of been a sleepy home game there. Now Tavares scores the goal. The crowd gets into it. And what you look for is your bench. A fourth-line shift that Craig Berube puts out, and your veteran guys saying, okay, let's get a little edge into this game. Tanev does a great job of standing up his man Kapanen and making him feel that hit. Ends up forcing a icing call, and you get an offensive zone faceoff.
Domi won it, but he fired it past Riley back into the Leaf zone. Up ahead it goes. Robertson winds it back in. Here's Robertson for Domi. Flipping it from distance, and that's easy pickings for Kakkonen.
It's such a different year here for Craig Berube. Your second training camp. The guys know what to expect, at least the majority of them. You know it's a very different year too, and the one thing he said early on, don't have to listen to the core four again, and even for that matter, the Shanna plan. I think the fingerprints of Craig Berube you'll see more as this season goes along. This has been a very different training camp, the ability to work on a few more things, and the guys all understanding the key words. You got to compete, you got to go north-south, you got to forecheck. All those things that were new to the majority of these guys is commonplace now, and now it's a question of integrating the new players and getting everybody on the same page quickly to get off to a good start.
Riley wraps it around. Robertson tries to gather that. He came off the boards with it. Nice play by Robertson, looking for Riley in front. He'll fire it across off Kakkonen, and out comes Dauphin. Into the middle, here's Kandata from Georgetown. Lucas Kandata nice the other way with Domi. They don't get untracked, and Delgaizo steps up. The former Nashville Predators in, and he'll fire that off Carlos stick high. Riley with a lead feed that hit Domi, and it's played back into the Leaf zone. Shots are 15-11 Montreal. One-goal game as Riley edges out. Robertson sweeps it deep and heads to the bench on a change. Nick Waud on the forecheck. Benning battling forward at center. And it'll slide back to Ekman Larsson. Here comes Michelli. Trying to dash in. Send it in behind the net. Joshua uses his size to ward off a check. Michelli back to Ekman Larsson. His shot. That hit Waugh en route. Matt Benning tapped at it. Farrell can't get loose. Waugh will step up. Across to Ekman Larsson. Here's Ekman Larsson, and Hudson got a stick on that. Waugh knocked down. Leafs were changing, and Farrell's able to dash in. Here's Sean Farrell. Tracked by Tanev. Back around to the far side. And here's Valeno. And a turn against Jarnkrok. Beck into the middle, and he lost it. Away goes Nylander. William Nylander in, and he puts on the brakes. As play is called, and too many men is being called against Toronto. So the Leafs get a power play goal to get within one, but it's a Montreal power play when we come back.
Even a exhibition game. I think just some excitement here on the turnover. Why did you get the turnover? Well, it's pretty good defensive zone coverage. Do the count. 6 guys created that chance for Nylander, and took the linesman, about 4 or 5 seconds to figure it out. But I think on that turnover, there's no question the extra stick created the chance, and now they got to go to the penalty.
Funny enough, I think Nylander knew, but if nobody's going to whistle it, he's going to keep going. But
yeah, exactly.
So the Canadiens have the lead on a power play goal. Kidney from Farrell and Blais earlier in the period, and getting set to go back on the power play once again.
Yeah, I think Nylander's watching his YouTube channel there, or is he watching the play? I'm not sure. I don't think they have it wired to the bench yet.
Don't know if he's got anything for YouTube tonight yet.
No. Well, look at the penalty killers out here, though. It's Dakota Joshua and Nicholas Waugh. I mean, that's where you're looking at some real change here for the Maple Leafs.
Canadiens able to work it in. It'll come back to Hudson. He'll walk in, scores! Wayne Hudson, power play goal. And Montreal restores a 2-goal lead.
Oh, man. I mean, just the composure for Hudson. He's been a highlight reel from the beginning of this game. Any question again of how prepared he's going to be to start this season? I think even tonight has shown it. You know, last year, though, with all the offense that he only had one power play goal, but just fakes this shot, buys himself a little more time, and that's one where Dakota Joshua stops but doesn't get the stick in the way, the quick release with the screen in front. And Lane Hudson with his head never looks at this puck the entire time, just a couple of quick stick handles and the quick release, and there it is in the back of the net.
"66 points in his rookie year, 35 of them came on the road. And last year, a goal and 25 assists on the power play. 3-1 Montreal on the power play goal at 16:11 of the second period. Here comes Foligno dropping it off. Blais in. Back to Hudson and Struble. Hudson firing another one through. That one seemed to fool Stolarz, but able to hold it out. Foligno, diagonal shoot in, and Owen Beck goes after it. Plays it to Blais. Back for Beck. At the line. The shot goes high off the stick of Engstrom. Foligno in behind the net, getting away from Benning. Back to the line, Del Gaizo, and Engstrom back to Del Gaizo, and he fired that. It ends up deflecting wide. Robertson ducked away from a check and gets rid of it at center. Sent back in by Del Gaizo, who gets a shot from Vallis. Borja Vallis. Spelled differently, the second Borja in Toronto Maple Leaf history.
Yeah.
And the fans here trying to urge the home team to get back within one before this period's done. And Nylander goes to work. Just dumping it in past Del Gaizo and chasing after it. Engstrom to the line, kept in there, and Carlo drifts that wide. Here's Riley down low. Yarncroke stopped by Kakkonen in tight.
Hey, it's the preseason. You know, not everybody's totally up to speed. This kid, though, looks like he's in mid-season form as right there, Hudson with the fake shot pulls it to the inside. You know, the inside scorekeeper, though, it should be 3-1 Montreal. Instead, they say, oh, maybe everyone's just sort of getting back into the rhythm. That is the NHL season. There's the change all of a sudden to make it back to 3-1 for Montreal.
Somebody's thinking if only 48 was on the home side. It's not 2-2, it's a 2-goal Montreal lead. Riley. Carlo dumping it down onto Kakkonen. Holds on to that. Mentioned he had a great American Hockey League playoff. Kaapo Kakkonen, 12-6 for the Charlotte Checkers. Started last preseason in Winnipeg vying for the backup job to Connor Hellebuck, but was placed on waivers and bounced around a bit.
One game in Colorado in the NHL, 3 different AHL teams. That's a tough year for a goaltender.
McCabe fired it. But that hit, it did hit the player in front, Dauphin, who is on the limp as he leaves the zone and hobbles off.
Right in the side of the leg. Wasn't even looking, trying to box out in front to give his goaltender the sight, and ends up hitting him hard in the lower leg.
Final minute, second period. Goes Joshua in after it. Now Waugh trying to tie up his man. It'll come to Benning. Backing him up is Yarncroke. Across it goes for OEL. A good stick there by Hudson, who reached around the bigger player, Nick Waugh. Benning fires it across. It went off Yarncroke, and it's picked up by Bolduc, who flips it back into the Leaf zone with under a half-minute remaining here in the second. Del Gaizo had it knocked down by Waugh. New hook, centering pass, back it comes, and another shot by Hudson. Stolars has got back.
Another turnaround for Montreal, a little offensive zone pressure, but when the Leafs did have the pressure in front, good positioning in front, looking for any kind of a rebound, a shot off to the side, and Michelli getting battled there right off the leg. Drops him down as Dauphin, just not even looking at the puck, making sure that Michelli didn't get his stick on it. Asking, hey coach, is that where you want me to be? Just sit back on the bench.
Hudson from Thorpe and Newhook, the scoring play on the third Canadian goal, so a couple of points for Alex Newhook on the night. And the Canadiens will head to the room through 2 with a 2-goal lead. A couple of power play goals in that period for the Canadiens. And they lead 3-1. And Marty St. Louis is going to start the chalk talk right on the bench. Shots 18-13 through 40 minutes for the visitors. Our second intermission, Carolyn Cameron, Nick Kiprios, Justin Bourne, and the birthday boy, Elliot Friedman, coming up.
Intensity and a little bit of physicality. Sports fans got all of that and some at the Ryder Cup today. There was a few nasty back and forths. Apparently some pretty offside comments coming from the crowd. Now, if you spent all day watching this, you may have been hoping for a little bit of an emotional break, something a little bit lighter. Well, hate to break it to you, you're not getting it, because tonight a golf match broke out at a hockey game. The Habs and the Leafs know a little something about heated rivalries, whether it's the preseason. The tempers have been high all night. This should be setting up a great season opener between these two in just 11 days. Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson will be there. And guys, watching the golf today had me wondering, what would happen if hockey fans were only separated from the players by a thin rope? I think we'd see our fair share of nastiness too.
Just had that image of the guy in Philadelphia going through the penalty box.
It's like, whoa, I didn't want to get here.
Didn't want to get that close to Ty Domi.
This might be a mistake.
There's Artur Akhtiamov, who comes in for the third period, his third appearance of the preseason. 1-0-1. He has stopped 31 of 35. Keppo Kakkonen is apparently going to go the distance here for the Canadiens. Jacob Fowler is the backup for Montreal. A 2-goal Canadiens lead here as we start the third. Kapanen will roll it in. Cousin of former Leaf Kasperi Kapanen. Alex Newhook's got a pair of points in the game. Bolduc sends it around. It'll come back to Carrier. And it ricochets right to Akhtiamov for his first touch.
You know, listening to Nick Waugh talk about, you know, getting the Toronto jersey, sweater on for the first time. I can tell you, it doesn't matter how long you've been in the league, when you've been used to wearing a certain color all the time, that first time is just such a shock to your system. And listening to him today say it's the first time he'd been in the dressing room, right? It's like you forget everything's over at the Ford Performance Center, the practice rink. So all of a sudden, not just your first game, but your first foray into what life as a Maple Leaf on a game day looks like. And I just found it interesting, even not a rookie guy, but he found it pretty exciting to go through all that for the first time.
Not to mention the traffic in Toronto.
Oh man, what a day it was.
Especially difficult today. There's a shot, Akhtiamov as the stop off Sammy Blais.
You think at the Strip in Vegas it was as bad as that? Yeah, this was a high volume traffic day getting here to watch this game. That's something you're going to have to plan. That's the one thing you always dread as a new player. Am I going to be late for something? And I do think it's a very different animal dealing with a big city like this. And you got to make sure you leave in plenty of time so you don't get late.
Blue Jays TFC also playing today, which causes a little extra traffic, and the GO train, or at least one line not in service.
Well, you got a playoff run, one game left in the Blue Jays season to try to win the division. You had Lionel Messi at the soccer game, so yeah, there's quite a bit of interest down here.
And Montreal, Toronto here, and that shot blasted wide. Struble sending it ahead. Farrell will spin the puck to Owen Beck. Across it comes. Look at that pass, and Belzile just missed. Alex Belzile with a chance. The oldest Canadian since 1926 to score his first National Hockey League goal at the age of 31. And after a couple of years with the Hartford Wolfpack, he scored 19 and each. He's back in Montreal organization.
And if nothing else, just as you mentioned, like a 20-goal scorer in the American League can fill in up and down your lineup too. You can never have enough good character guys like that to fill in when you need it, when you've got some injuries.
Laval had 6 20-goal scorers last year, so they have depth scoring, and we've got a penalty coming up, and Maple Leafs will get an early third-period power play.
Well, if I'm Craig Berube here, you look at the Marty St. Louis team has been, I think, out skating them. They had a little bit more energy, but here's one play. Nick Robertson, you just can't get in the traffic area there. Edstrom ends up taking the penalty. It's one for Robertson. Good job at least keeping your legs going. Now you've got to try to make the power play pay off again like they did last time.
So the Leafs 1 for 2 on the power play. The Tavares power play goal was unassisted. 12 power play goals during the regular season for Tavares. Co-leader along with William Nylander, and had 3 more power play goals in the postseason, but it's Waugh to take this draw.
Here's another, you experiment a bit. You got a bunch of new players, 3 new players out on this 5 power play.
And 5 forward set. This time with Michelli and Nylander at the points. Michelli across, or excuse me, it is Ekman Larsson. So not 5 forwards, and a goal post there on that shot. As Kakkonen comes out to play it, sends it around, it gets past Domi, and Ekman Larsson back. Thought it was back in last year. Max Domi to work. Rick wide it goes, Waugh over the line, knocked off his stick by the reach of Jack-Eye. Round it goes, held in at the line by Ekman Larsson, put it right on. Big rebound, but Joshua couldn't find it. Owen Beck has a break. Short-handed, and Aktiama has the save.
How's that for your first bit of action for Aktiama? Off a short-handed breakaway, just stood his ground. He didn't bite quickly. I think Beck had so much speed going, just stayed solid and able to get a pad on.
Now Nylander is out. He'll take it from Riley. William Nylander into the corner. Robertson back up top. 44 will fire. Missed the target. Nyes trying to reach the rebound. It'll be bumped back to Riley and across. And Nylander didn't get all of it. For Robertson, excuse me, and off the shoulder of Kakkonen and out.
He did his best to get a piece of it. A couple good chances, though. That first unit gets a good one. And one thing for Max Domi that Craig Berube has been saying, shoot the puck. Well, there's a great example of it, shooting it with a good screen. Now you've got a turnover that Beck does a great job of separating himself here. But look at Aktiama. Does a nice job of just staying out aggressively there, not giving him anything. And then that one-timer by Robertson was rolling the whole way. He did his best just to get a piece of it.
Tavares knocks that down along the boards. He's tied up by Kandata. Dauphin trying to pry it loose, and the Canadiens do come up with it and clear. Late stages of the Engstrom penalty. as Riley hands it off. 88 to work, slicing through, then stopped, and Montreal will clear.
Montreal's really tried to just jam up that line. But Akiyama thought he had an outlet there, instead just gave the puck down. A little bit impatient there as the Leaf power play was just changing.
Canadiens 9th on the kill last year, and the Maple Leafs were 9th on the power play. And the Canadiens get a kill to protect this 2-goal lead.
Well, I'm not sure what Marty St. Louis is expecting here. He can't make the change because there was an icing call. Just making sure that they know if you win the draw, he wants certain guys to come on.
Former Leaf Stefan Robida, the blue line assistant coach. There's Dallas with a shot. The rebound, loose for Quillen, and Kokkonen down to stop a couple from the Leaf fourth line tonight.
Yeah, you get your chance to play and you get your chance in the offensive zone. Well, look at the battles. Win a couple of battles. Dallas does a nice job of keeping this puck alive, and then Quillen just drives it hard to the net. Nice job of Kokkonen standing his ground. You talk about the goaltender not making too many movements to open up room, and Pizzetta, pardon me, does a great job of coming in, taking it hard aggressively to the net, getting the backhand there. Just couldn't find a hole on the goaltender.
You know, Dallas is well trained by former teammate of yours at Prince George, Mark Lamb.
That was a really good coach, and just talk about a player who used everything in his toolbox, all his desire to be an effective hockey player. A good guy to look up to for sure.
He said Dallas was one of the most improved players he'd seen in the Western Hockey League. Jake McCabe works his way in. Tanev across. There's Dallas from distance. Turned aside into the corner. Michael Pizzetta out there along with Quillen and Dallas. Lead feed gets by Farrell. And Tanev back in his own zone. We're 5 minutes into the third. Shots at 21-18 Montreal. And the Canadiens with a 2-goal advantage and a pair of power play goals in the game. There's Engstrom. Dauphin turned back by Järnkrok. Joshua nearly forced to give away, but the puck bounced there on Benning. Jumped his stick. Järnkrok trying to redirect it towards Joshua. Engstrom up ahead, and Montreal's away. Across for Dauphin on this near side. And Engstrom. Both teams changing, gives him some room to get to center. Fired in where Newhook's got it. 2 points for Alex Newhook. Getting tied up there by Benning. Now to the near side, a collision between Robertson and Hudson.
Yeah, Hudson tried a little reverse hit there. I think it surprised Robertson. Wasn't expecting that from number 48.
And Benning gets to the red line and sends it in. Hudson around. Hudson listed 5'9", 162. Puck out of play. He's been the prominent player tonight in Toronto here in the third. More inexperienced lineups leading a veteran lineup, but really doesn't surprise you in the preseason.
No, I think that's 4 games in a row for the Leafs, at least, that it's been that way. And, you know, Craig Berube said as much the other day that, you know, when you have a veteran lineup, each veteran's trying to just get a little something else out of the exhibition game than trying to score all the time. I can tell you, for me, in the 10 exhibition seasons I went through, the first 2 for sure, you're trying to score, you're trying to make an impact so that you stay, that you become a regular. As you go along, though, quite honestly, you don't really even want to score necessarily and waste one in the preseason. I think you look at the players. Austin Matthews scored on his first shift of the first game. Didn't even really make any kind of emotion at all. I think you just want to work, get up to speed, get into the physicality of it. And I think that's why you've seen around the league where lineups that don't look like they have any chance have been lineups that have been able to dictate the pace of the game. I think you've seen a little bit of that here tonight, haven't you?
You said what? You had one big preseason?
I had one preseason. I had 15 points in the preseason, and I think I just got off to a horrible start. Like 1 goal in the first 9 games. And
you used them up.
And that does go through your mind. You know, if you're a guy like Austin Matthews or William Nylander, do you want to get 5 goals in the 4 games here? You feel like you're wasting them. You don't need them. Your motivation is different. And it's different for everybody, but I think you see it league-wide.
Wayne Hudson's not feeling that right now, though.
See, he's in his second one. That's exactly why. You still want to prove yourself.
And John McKenzie opened the show with that quote about that was his approach coming in. And
he's shown it.
Yeah, he's going to make the team. There's Valeno working against Tanev. Wow. Tagged along the board. Jarnkrok. He is hit there by Blais. Puck to the line. Looks like Blais and Bolduc will give Montreal a little more sandpaper, which is what Marty St. Louis is looking for.
Yeah, that's one improvement that they really do want. You know, they made such strides last year in making it to the Stanley Cup playoffs. They were a better defensive team. They got their offense going and clicking at times. He just wants them to be a little harder to play against. And those are 2 additions that he hopes can start to do that. This isn't a huge team, but they've got that ability to play you hard as well.
Ballas back, and Ekman Larsson in his own zone, approaching 8 minutes of the third. Billy Quillen dropping it in. Talking about the Atlantic Canada scoring in Montreal. Jacob Quillen from Dartmouth will try to cut into this Montreal lead here in the third. Ekman Larsson feeds it ahead. A stretch pass that hops over the stick to Pezzetta. Engstrom holds on. Both teams are changing. So he'll idle until the fresh troops arrive. Up ahead it goes. Off the stick to Thorpe and deep. Chasing after it, Farrell. Max Domi. Off the boards, Robertson. Engstrom plays it back out. And play called at the Montreal line.
Well, a guy who's trying to find a place in this lineup for Montreal is Owen Beck. And Hudson again, just showing that patience, turning and get to the front of the net. Tried to pull it across. Great job of Akhtiamov, just not dying on that play. You know, credit Beck. He had a good patience there, came around. You see his year last year, that's a pretty solid season with the 44 points in Laval. There was some good progress down in the American League, but he's a guy who played 12 games last year, and Chris, he wants more. And the one thing that Marty St. Louis said to him, you can't always be thinking offense. Just like every coach, you have to learn the defensive game. You have to learn how to compete at the NHL level, and he's trying to find a way to do that and stay in this year's line.
Here's Nyes behind the Montreal net, trying to get away. Nyes, Domi, Robertson battling for space, and Tanev miscues at the line. Back for Domi, trying to get it to Robertson, broken up, but here's Belzile in. Now it's Belzile in front, scores! Farrell's got the goal, and it's 4-1 Montreal.
Well, there's one for Belzile. I think he was trying to make the play, trying to hold on it enough to get it to Farrell, but it's a turnover in the neutral zone that you just can't play. And now all of a sudden it's a 3-on-1 back. A good stick there by Chris Tanev, got a piece of it, but Farrell, he's got the ability to goal score. He had 20 goals, one of those 20-goal scorers in the American Hockey League last year, and he makes do. Look at the stick, takes it off. It just slides across there to Farrell, but he's able to poke it up and over the blocker side there of Akhtiamov.
Played at Harvard with a couple of guys in the Leaf camp. Henry Thrun and the injured Marshall Rafai, who suffered a broken wrist here in the preseason. Tough news for him after a terrific opening preseason game in Ottawa.
Yeah, you know, talk about making your presence felt. Rafai was doing just that, wasn't he? Just showing. Guy who gets called up last year 5 times, never played a game, played 2 games 2 years ago. That's a bit of bad luck from a kid that really looked like he was progressing and trying to make his mark.
And for the Canadiens, David Reinbacher suffering a broken bone in his hand. He's out for at least 4 weeks as Tavares sends it high. It'll come back towards Michelli, unable to handle a hot pass. Ekman Larsson trying to hold the zone, but the Leafs have to regroup inside their own blue line. And now working his way ahead is Struble. Passing it across.
Nylander got hurt there, and that just a collision with Tavares. I'm not sure if Tavares' stick came across and got Nylander, but he's still got his head down as he's going to the bench. I think he was trying to make the change and maybe get across the bodies. Let's have a look. Gets underneath the stick there and then gets a collision. It goes off awkward. Collision, Tavares and Nylander, they're both kind of out of the play. Now the D is backing up, and there's just the stick into the hands as Struble going for that rebound. Oliver Ekman Larsson gets the stick in lateral across, and it's a hooking call for another power play here for the Montreal Canadiens.
Montreal 2 for 2.
How do you think the coach is going to feel about the overall game here on home ice? You know, it's interesting. We kind of thought Austin Matthews might play tonight, and he didn't. Okay, there's one decision with just 2 games left, one at home and one on the road in Detroit.
Likely he'll be in the lineup against Detroit here on Thursday. Leafs are going to spend some time in Muskoka prior to that game and then go to Detroit to finish off the preseason. Montreal's next up against Ottawa Tuesday in Quebec City as Nick Waugh clears the zone.
For your top veterans, you're really at this point saying, okay, how much do you need? And as we all know, next year there's only 4 exhibition games anyway, so typically your top guys might only play 2, but you know, you hope the other guys that get the opportunity just raise their level, and here on home ice so far, it just hasn't quite translated into that. The better looking lineups for the Leafs have yet to really make their impact. The lesser ones, especially that game in Montreal, the 7-2 win, they did. And that's telling for a coach as well.
Derek Lalonde, who's in charge
Another
of the
newcomer
penalty kill this year.
Yeah.
See, he got such experience with Hockey Night in Canada, working with
He's got himself a job.
Kevin Bieksa and Elliot Friedman. That's going to get you a job on the Leafs bench. Here's Thorpe sliding it through, and Akiyama just got his mitt on it. And Carlo took exception to the Canadiens' Bolduc crashing the net.
Yeah, in comes the cavalry. You know, this is a smart play by Akiyama. It maybe seems like a little one, but often a goaltender here, it's coming to you, you've got some pressure to your right, and the instinct here is to just deflect it into the corner. Well, if he deflects that in the corner, it might even go off the shoulder pad or the shin pad, and all of a sudden it's in the back of your net. This is a heads-up play by a young goaltender, turned his stick back towards where the shot came from and able to get to it, and then his defenseman comes in and makes sure nobody gets any contact.
50 seconds gone, and the penalty to Ekman Larsson. Kidney against Quillen, so it's a Nova Scotia face-off, and Kidney gets it back to Engstrom. Down low, and back to Riley Kidney, who has a power play goal in the game. Here's Kidney into the slot, and Merrill unable to get his stick on that. Merrill has the stick knocked out of his hand by Quillen. Belzile down low. Comes around for Kidney. Blake calls for it and gets it. Kidney to Engstrom. No shot. Slap pass, and it jumps the stick of Kidney. Back across, and Belzile fired that off the toe of Akiyama. Back in front, McCabe read the play. Comes across. Takes a hit, but got it to Tanev, and he'll clear.
It's an interesting opportunity for Nick Robertson and Jacob Quillen. They are 2 killers that haven't had a whole lot of experience together, getting that opportunity there. Of course, that's going to be the big question mark on the Leafs penalty kill, that 2 minutes and 16 seconds.
Yeah.
Mitch Marner time. They're the 3rd most in the Leafs lineup. Obviously the top forward from a shorthanded perspective. And That's going to be a question mark of who's going to fill that role. Will it be by committee, or will you see somebody step up into a more prominent role than we've seen without him?
Well, I wondered if it might be Nylander, who it almost looked like Sheldon Keefe was ready to give him a chance a couple of years ago. He got a little bit of time, but last year, nothing at all.
1 second,
1 second
on average. We saw Dakota Joshua go off there a little bit before. You know, last year he killed about 31 seconds a game of shorthanded time. So you could go back and maybe have a little look, have a discussion. Is he a type of guy that if he's going to play that third line role, not bad to have him killing, because it keeps them in the game and allows them to be in those defensive positions.
Here's Michelli off the boards. Tavares, the lone goal scorer for the Leafs out there, and sigh of relief for Toronto fans as William Nylander is back on the ice after that uncomfortable collision. Puck to the side of the net, brought down off the net by Tavares. Nylander unable to corral that puck, and an outlet that sends away Montreal. Valeno drives the lane, back in front, and unable to handle it was Beck from a spot where it looked like a sure goal. Valeno, and the glove stop by Akhtiamov with the net knocked off in behind.
Well, you know, again, Beck in the center of it. Well, he and Valeno trying to get a little bit of chemistry going. You know, Joe Valeno, another player brought in to play that significant role. Can he be a third or a fourth line centerman? Some good year in Detroit, but there's the play, but good patience there by Beck. You can see, you know, you're going to have a little bit of time, a little static play by Oliver Ekman-Larsson, because he didn't know if he had support or not, and Valeno curls back and able to get an open shot. And Akhtiamov again in great positioning there. Not worried about the battle going on behind him. Got outside of his blue and made a good aggressive save.
With that terrific game he played a couple of years back for Detroit, the building, after being driven to the game by his general manager, Steve Yzerman. Not sure if Kent Hughes or Jeff Gordon is going to supply a ride for Valeno, but it worked once.
Well, another guy, you know, he's got some experience, Chris, but he's just 25 years old. And, you know, they're banking on him with the opportunity to play more. Had a career-high 12 goals in Detroit. Can he get into that 15 and play a significant role on both ends of the ice?
Robertson with a shot kicked away by Kakkonen. And Valeno, of course, grew up in Kirkland on the West Island, a Montreal Canadiens fan. Engstrom slowly out. Up ahead it goes. Belzile to the attack. Curls it back. Plays it for Struble. Jaden Struble's in deep, centering it. It'll come across for Carrier. Alex Carrier hit by Riley and knocked down. Carlo, a lead feed, and Pullen's on the move. Here's Pullen, unable to bust through. Back comes Farrell. John Farrell chipping and going after it, along with Ekman-Larsson. Picked up by big Tyler Thorpe to the line. That shot doesn't get to the net. Thorpe refeeds. Engstrom across to Struble. His shot blocked by Pezzetta, and then up and hit the official. And
boy, that early reaction did not look good.
No, that's just Carter Sandlak who took the ricochet.
Totally surprised him. It was a shot going towards the net, just got deflected right into the corner, right where he was trying to survey the play.
Looks like he's going to be okay. Carter, the son of former Canuck Jim Sandlak. And good to see him back on his skates.
Rays can catch it at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific on Sportsnet. The situation is simple: win. They clinch the division. Chris, Craig.
That's up to 162 games.
Unbelievable. You think of a long season like that? I think it's Kevin Gausman, though, and that's something you better win that game so that you get the rest. And,
yes.
You know, that's going to be the difference. If all of a sudden you have to go in a best of 3, that having him out of that lineup and out of that rotation, that's killer. But what a season the Blue Jays have had. They've been fun to watch.
And it's been in their hands all weekend. And
yeah.
They have a chance to take care of business. I bumped into Kyle Calder's parents here visiting from Alberta today. And they were doing the double coming here.
Went to the game
after the Blue Jay game.
Nice. Well, Sandlak's back already too.
Isn't that something?
He just jumped out there on that blown draw, and he's back in action. Has he ever looked like his dad?
Yep. Just over 5 minutes remaining. Again, 11 days from now, these two teams will open the season. Waugh trying to get it across. Calle Järnkrok sweeps it around. It'll come to Joshua. Ekman Larson. Rink wide, Benning. Kicks the shot, and it's deflected wide. Waugh got a stick on that. He's got the puck again. Nick Waugh into the high slot. Holds on to it, tracked by Ekstrom. Reverses and hands it off to Ekman Larson, loose in front. And Ekstrom picks it off, and he'll skate away. There's Ekstrom with Ekman Larson turning him back. Left in the corner, Benning there. An outlet, and the Leafs will work their way ahead. Matthias Pacelli one-hands it in.
That was a great example of Ekman Larson, what he can do, joining the play offensively, getting a part of that cycle, but then getting back defensively as well. That was a good combination play by the veteran defenseman.
An offside called. Ekman Larson, Chris Tanev, Morgan Riley, more games played individually than the combined total of the Montreal Canadiens blue line tonight. But the one guy that's stolen the show is playing on the Montreal Canadiens blue line.
The young guy at the other end has given the Leafs a few fits, and that's Lane Hudson. But you know, I don't mind the look of this Leaf defense now. I still think the one thing, both these teams on their back end looking for a little bit more offense, and that'll be interesting if they can generate that a little bit better than they did last year. Both the Leafs and Montreal needing a bit more from the defenders.
Leafs with the fewest goals from their blue line. The regular season, there's a goal to cut into Montreal's lead. Nylander and Tavares loose in front. And 88 does have a YouTube highlight.
You know, it's simple hockey, as Craig Berube has told this team so many times. Get in on the forecheck. Get in on the dump in. An opportunity to clear the zone. Goaltender Kakkonen goes back up the boards. Michael Nye's in a great position there. Matthew Nye makes the play to keep it alive. Tavares with the little tip. And there's on the doorstep, William Nylander. That tip there didn't allow Kakkonen to get it as Tavares got a piece of it. And then Nylander on the doorstep makes it a 4-2 game.
25 last year, 3 consecutive 40-goal seasons. And the best news tonight for Nylander, not that goal, but the fact that he didn't get hurt on what could have been a scary collision.
And there's the reaction that is a preseason end-of-game reaction of scoring a goal. That, you know, just the little details that Craig Berube would be happy with. Matthew Nye's reading along the boards to make the play. Not sure what the delay is. We saw the clock problems before with the score. Now it's gone all the way up to 4-3. So maybe there is an issue just with the technology, not the technicians.
Okay. And resetting it for 3:53. So it's a 2-goal Montreal lead.
And Chris, what wasn't lost there was Craig Berube aggressively was pulling the goalie, right, to get the extra attacker. Didn't need it really by the time the play developed, but that tells you just the mindset. You got to practice those situations.
Belzile with a chance, kicked out. Akhtiamov again. Batted away from the front of the net out of midair, and the Leafs able to clear. Maybe a break here for Nylander. Trying to stay onside, lost his footing. Delgaizo got back. Delgaizo hauls down Nylander. But they say play on. The net empty, an extra attacker on the ice for Toronto. McCabe sends it across. Loose stick there, breaks up the pass for Nylander. Parking in front, Nick Waugh. Here's Waugh trying to center. A sprawling block there by Carrier. Nye able to work it loose, but Bill Zell will backhand it down the ice. Takes the in-turn and just goes wide. Farrell wipes out the icing. A pass there for Thorpe doesn't work, and the Leafs will advance. 2:40 to go in the game. Wide opened up. Here's John Tavares in front. That hit escaped. Max Domi comes up with a puck. Here's Domi. Tavares back to Domi. Back in front. Bouncing puck. Excuse me. That's Joshua now in front. 81 Joshua taken to the boards. Domi looking to work it loose. Joshua does get it loose. It'll be fed back to McCabe. Back to Nye. McCabe for Domi on the near side. Domi in front off Joshua. Nice again. McCabe with 2 minutes to go. Tavares and Kakanen's got that.
Well, if nothing else, good practice time for your 6-on-5. They've already scored one on it to make it an interesting 2-goal game here with just 2 minutes left, and just good pressure and good patience around. I thought Matthew Nyes had a couple of chances where he maybe could have pounded the puck, instead put it back. This one, though, in tight, a little give and go to the front of the net, the bouncing puck, and then right on the doorstep, just couldn't get the second rebound was Dakota Joshua. That deflection not quite making its way. Kakkonen trying to look through the big body. The one thing Joshua can do there is try to get in the eyes of the goaltender. Just missed a little bit there and left a little lane for Kakkonen to be able to see that puck and hold on.
Looks like Joshua's got into the eyes of Arber Xhekaj. They have exchanged pleasantries a couple of times, maybe setting a date for opening night. Loose puck in front, and Kakkonen with a big stop there. Puck fired the length of the ice, a race for it, and they're going to call icing.
Good job, Morgan Riley there. Just got to his man, beat Bolduc. And here's one for Domi, just turned around. The puck was right there off of him. You know, the battle for the loose puck here, and Xhekaj not able to clear it. Domi turned around, just got the quick shot away. Kakkonen in good position. You be the judge there. Yeah, Riley did a good job. He got the inside route, was able to win that battle as Bolduc looked on.
Wasn't sure from our perspective, but
that was the right call.
Tavares on the draw, wins it for the Leafs. Back to Robertson and Riley. Morgan Riley will get it set up. Nick Robertson across, pinballs in front. Tavares battling Domi. Couldn't come up with the puck. Now played back by Molino. It'll come across to Michelli. Back in across. And a puck bounced on Nylander. He couldn't center the puck, and the Leafs will have to regroup back in their own zone. 80 seconds to go in regulation time. Here's Nyes. Checked on the play as Bolduc came back, and that will be icing Montreal.
No, not without their chances. The Leafs had a couple in tight that just almost turned into glorious chances. Nyes with a nice little deflection, high deflection in front, and you know that there's going to be traffic, so just trying to create that rebound positioning. Got some tired bodies. Xhekaj's been 1:42 to this point. Now he's had one icing, so he's been able to breathe a little bit, but try to take advantage of it with some fresh bodies on the ice.
Good situational opportunity for both teams. 6-on-5 and 5-on-6 that isn't usually practiced that much. Off the draw, Montreal had it, but unable to clear Carrier. They'll jam along the boards. Carrier taking a few seconds off the clock, and we are down to the final minute. Kipped in at the line, and McCabe's pass broken up by Bolduc, looking for an open net, and that was knocked down by Robertson, who checks his stick, and it broke it, so he's got to get a new cue. Up come the Leafs. Nice. Sliding it through, Robertson after it. Bumped there by Jackeye. Jackeye along the boards. Robertson stays on him. Waugh steps in. Here's McCabe. Back into the corner. Robertson and Waugh there. Robertson takes charge. Couple dozen seconds to go. John Tavares swings it into the corner. Robertson, sharp angle, and it sticks to Capo Kakkonen.
You know, all the little stick battles and the fight for the puck along the boards are frustrating offensively, and defensively all you're trying to do is make sure that nobody gets it out fresh and free and create a separation. You can see just trying to protect the middle of the Canadiens. That's a shot from an angle that Robertson just looking for some kind of deflection. I don't think he's thinking he's going to beat the goaltender there. Matthew Nyes got boxed out on the other side, couldn't get the bounce off his body.
From the faceoff comes out in front. Michelli unable to reach that as Owen Beck was positioned well defensively. Now in front again. Beck gets it away from the front of the net. Clock draining. One more stop for Kakkonen on the doorstep, and Montreal will win 4-2 to split the home and home between the arch rivals here in the preseason.
Yeah, the Maple Leafs go into Montreal and win a lopsided game, and Montreal with a little bit of a weaker lineup came in and played a really hard-fought battle. Had a good start to this game, took the commanding lead, and then the 6-on-5 basically for the last 3.5 minutes produced one goal, but not enough for the Maple Leafs.
Again, next up for Montreal in Quebec City against the Ottawa Senators. And the Leafs, their next game, we'll have it for you on Thursday here against the Detroit Red Wings. Well, it was a lopsided win for Toronto in Montreal, but tonight the Canadiens get a measure of revenge. And again, we'll see these two teams in the season opener in 11 days. 4-2 the final. The Canadiens win it. Coming up, Sportsnet Central presented by KFC with Martine and Faisal. So long, everybody.